Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some burger buns, and these are going to be burger buns that have some mashed potato in them, so potato burger buns. You could divide the eventual dough into smaller pieces and make dinner rolls if you wanted to, but I'm going to make burger buns. It's actually not a difficult recipe, but it does take some time because, as with all yeasted doughs, or almost all yeasted doughs, you have to leave the dough to proof for a while, at least twice um, 1 hour and then another hour in between shaping. But the resultant burger buns are lovely and soft and flavourful, very, very good indeed. So I'll go on to the ingredients. And for the ingredients, I have here one large, and I'm using Maris pipe potatoes, but any floury potato which is good for roasting or boil or mashing will do. And that weighs about 280 grams, which I think that's probably about 10 ounces. I've peeled that and cut it into pieces of about that size. I have 28 grams, 2 tablespoons of butter. I have 350 grams, which is 2 1/3 cups of bread flour, and that's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 1 medium egg, which would be large in the USA, which is going to go into my dough, and I have another medium egg, again large in the USA, which is going to have some water added to it to brush over the top later. I have 1 tablespoon, 12.5 grams of caster sugar or sugar. I have 7 grams, 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast, and I have 6 grams, 1 teaspoon of salt. I also will need 75 millilitres, which is 5 tablespoons of water, but I will use some water from the mashed potatoes or the boiled potatoes, so I'll do that later. So the first thing we have to do is to boil the potatoes, mash them or rice them, and then add the butter, stir it through, and then allow them to cool down. So I'm going to put my potatoes into a medium saucepan, and I'm going to cover them with cold water so that they're well covered, maybe 2 centimetres above the surface of the potatoes. And I'm going to bring them to a boil, and as soon as they start boiling, I'm going to turn the heat down so that they simmer, and I want them to simmer just until I can poke a knife into the centre and the knife comes out easily. At that point, I'll turn them off, drain the water out, retaining the 75 millilitres that I want, and then I'll put the potatoes back into the dry saucepan on a very, very low heat, and just keep shaking them on that heat for 25 to 30 seconds until the moisture has evaporated from around the potatoes. Then I'll put them into a bowl ready to rice. I'm going to put the potatoes into my ricer, and you can mash these with a potato masher or with a fork, and I'm simply going to press the potatoes through the ricer like that, and do the remainder. And with that rice, I'm going to add in my butter, and I'm going to stir that through. And the heat from the potatoes will melt the butter. And that's good like that. So I'm going to leave that now to cool down completely. And when it's cooled down completely, I will take 225 to 227 grams, about 8 ounces of it, and we will use that in the dough for the potato burger buns. Now, I think I will measure it out and check for you, but I think if you pack the potato into a 1 cup measure, 240 milliliter 1 cup measure, that will be the 227 grams that you need. But you need to pack it tightly in. I'll check that and tell you when I come back. My mashed potato has cooled down now, and I have measured out exactly 1 packed cupful into this container, and that weighs 227 grams. So that's good, that's ready to be used. So what I'm going to do is to put the flour into the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm going to put the yeast in and the salt, and I'm going to just mix those around to combine them like that. And then I'm going to put the potato in as well. And I'm going to mix that around until the potato breaks up into the flour. A few small lumps might remain, but that will be fine. They will break up as we're kneading. Now you can rub this between your fingers if you want, but I find it just as easy with my Danish whisk. So that's quite good like that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my sugar into the potato starch water. I'm going to mix that around. And then I'll add my egg in as well, and just mix that around to break it up. And then I'm going to put my dough hook on, and I'm going to start my processor, my stand mixer, on a low speed, and I'm going to slowly add the liquid ingredients in a bit at a time over a period of 2 minutes as the dough begins to all come together into one mixture. And then at that stage I will increase the speed to a medium speed and knead it for 8 to 10 minutes until I have a nice smooth elastic dough. So that's been 2 minutes, and you can see that's now come together into one big ball, and it's fairly clean already. So I'm going to increase the speed to a medium speed and let it knead until I have a smooth and elastic dough, and the sides should be quite clean as well. So that's quite well kneaded now, and it's quite smooth and it's elastic. So what I'm going to do is transfer that just to a very lightly floured work surface, and with the dough on the work surface I'm just going to toss it in that little bit of flour, and I'm going to knead it maybe for a minute. And I'll flour my hand as well. I want to form it into a ball. Just like that. And then I'm going to put that into a greased bowl. So I have a bowl here which I have lightly oiled, and I'm going to put it in top side down and then turn it over. And I'm going to cover it with some plastic wrap. And I'm going to leave that in a fairly warm place to prove until it's doubled in size. I'll pay close attention to it, and when I think it's doubled in size, which may take up to an hour, depending on the temperature in your kitchen, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next step, which is to divide the dough into the burger buns, let them rest, and then shape them. And at that stage, they're ready to proof again for an hour before they're baked. So the dough doubled in size in the bowl, and I've taken it out and put it onto my mat, and I'm just going to lightly sprinkle it, and then I'm going to pat it down to knock the air out, like that. And I want to divide that into 9 equally sized pieces. So to do that, I'm just going to roll it up and cut it into thirds, roughly of course, and then into thirds again. And I think each piece should be about 78 grams in weight. So there I have my 8 pieces, and it's a little bit sticky, so I'm going to keep my fingers floured, but I want to press each piece out and turn it in on itself like that, and then turn it over and roll it to form it into a ball, and then I squeeze the underside like that to seal it. So there I have my 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 buns, and I'm going to cover those again just in my piece of plastic wrap, which I have oiled slightly. So I let those rest for 15 minutes, and then after 15 minutes we will shape them into discs about 3.5 inches, 9 centimeters in diameter, and they will then proof for an hour to form our buns. So I rested my pieces of dough for 15 minutes, and I'm going to take each one, and I've lightly floured my surface because the dough seems a little bit tacky, and I'm going to press down the top. I want to form it into a disc which is about 3.5 inches, 9 centimeters in diameter, and that looks about right. So I'm then going to take that and place it onto a parchment lined baking tray, and I'll do the same with all the others. And so I have my 9 rolled out like that, and what I'm going to do is I'm again going to cover those with lightly oiled plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave them until they've doubled in size again, and that can take up to an hour. And once they've doubled in size, I'll come back and we'll put an egg wash on them, which will be just one medium egg with a little dash of water in it to loosen it up a little bit, and we'll brush that over the top before we bake them. And at that time I will have my oven preheated to 220 Celsius, that's 200 Celsius with a fan, 425 Fahrenheit. My oven is now preheated, and these buns, burger bun shapes, have doubled in size, and if I press them down they don't quite spring back. They leave an indentation, so I think they're proved enough. So what I'm going to do is I've beaten my egg with a little bit of water, and I'm going to brush over the top of each one. And with them brushed with the egg wash, I'm going to put them into my preheated oven, and I'll bake them for between 16 and 18 minutes. I think after 16 minutes they should have coloured a nice brownish colour on the top, and they're nice and shiny. They should have risen as well, and they'll be cooked through to an internal temperature of about 97-98 degrees, which is something over 200 Fahrenheit. So then I take them out of the oven and transfer them to a wire rack, and I'll allow them to cool down completely. Then I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the potato burger buns for 16 minutes. They turned that nice brown colour, and I took them out of the oven and I've allowed them to cool down completely, and they're nice and soft. This is what they look like. I've cut one in half so you can see that it's nice, has a nice texture, crumb inside, and I'll squeeze it so you can see that it's nice and soft as well, basically. So I'll have a taste of this just as it is, without any butter or anything. It is, as I say, lovely and soft, and it's moist. From what I've seen of burger buns in the past, the ones you could buy in the shop, they tend to be rather dry, but these are nice and moist, and they're quite simple to make. And as I said, you can actually do these as dinner rolls. Just cut them into maybe 12 pieces, 14 pieces, and shape them into the little rolls and bake them for less time. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for this recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.